Anuradha. A helot called Anuradha.
Anuradha.
That's the beginning.
All right. Hello.
Hi.
Hiya. Welcome back. We're doing second book club review of 2022.
Yes.
Spear of the Emperor by Aaron Dembski-Bowden.
Which was Patreon recommended, voted for.
Yep, voted for by the patrons who will get to see this first.
Yes, because you're paying.
And actually got to see it really, really fast because we went through this book in 2 weeks?
I know. I was literally messaging you being like, oh my God, this bit, oh my God. Real time, we just demolished it.
I was led into a false sense of security by this book because partly I was reading it going, right, before I recommend it to Mira, who has said how she doesn't like all the war and killing. How dark is this book? And I went and I looked at it and I read the first part. It's very much lures you in, this thing. Because you read the first bit and you're like, first book, I've forgotten. This is mostly a sort of character study of what it's like to live in this world. It's set in the very most modern timeline of 40k. It's got a point of view character who isn't a Marine, but it observes Marines. And it's a really interesting study on what Marines are. And I was like, yeah, they're great. That's totally suitable. We decided to read it and we'd started doing it. And we've both been like, oh, this is really quite fun, quite interesting. Then it got to the second chapter, which is just a freaking horror movie.
I feel like I wrote to you oof, oh my God, what's happening? I kind of had a moment of being really angry with you because it's quite torturous, traumatic.
It's fast and horrible.
Fast and horrible is a good
bit. We have a huge amount of character build up and set up about this world, this very specific bit of the world.
Yeah.
We have fast and horrible, and then we have a sort of how are we going to deal with the rest of our lives?
Yeah.
Third part.
Oof. Yes, yeah. It's a journey.
Yeah. So, Spear of the Emperor. So, Spear of the Emperor by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. It's one of the more modern novels. It's set in the current timeline. It deals with things
What's the current timeline called?
Changes quite a lot. I'm going to call it the Indomitus timeline.
Okay.
Because it deals with 40k since it had a moving forward story, which is, to be very brief, and I think I sent you a little brief summary.
Yes.
A Primarch from the olden days returns, Robert Guilliman, who Games Workshop insists on saying is called Robute Guilliman, not having it,
okay.
Who comes back and takes command of the Imperium. He also does a big thing, which is releases ancient research he had set in motion thousands of years ago to create better Space Marines, Primaris Space Marines.
Because what do we all need? Better Space Marines.
Space Marines with good proportions in models. So they release Primaris Space Marines. This deals a bit with that. Amadeus is he's firstborn. He's an original Space Marine.
So at the beginning, he's an original Space Marine.
Yes.
Then do they
Primaris him later.
You can kit bash him up.
Yeah.
So.
You can give him an upgrade. Yeah. Primaris Marines rollout has happened a couple of 100 years beforehand.
Right.
Some Space Marines are still the old type, firstborn. Some of them are of the second generation. Yes. They refer to it in this. At some point just after that, a huge warp rift spread across the Imperium called the Cicatrix Maledictum.
Easy for you to say.
I know, right? Which separated the Imperium proper, I suppose, from all these outlying parts that are cast the winds. No one knows what's happened to them. And essentially the plot here is a lone Marine is sent to find out what happened to an area of the galaxy where there were a number of Marine chapters defending it.
Right, yeah.
It's called Alara's Veil, and it was defended by 3 Marine chapters: Emperor's Spears, the Celestial Lions, and previously, but a long time ago previously, the Star Scorpions, who were lost in the warp.
Yeah.
And he's sent to find out what happened, see what aid they need, and he arrives and immediately realizes how stupid that entire idea is.
Well, yeah. He has
to
go all the way through the warp, which is not an easy journey. And then it's just the wastelands. It's it's the pioneer out there. It's a rough old universe. And it's not quite the empire that we're used to from the Imperium and the Inquisitors.
Yeah.
It's a bit barbaric.
Yeah. So just to go through, we'll briefly do the plot and then we'll briefly talk about what we thought, because there's a lot more to talk about what we thought, I think, than the plot is relatively easy to surmise.
I mean, let's see.
Right, so we start off, this book is divided into 3 parts, book 1, 2 and 3. The first book deals with essentially scene setting. We find our point of view character, a helot.
A helot.
Called Anuradha.
What is a helot?
So Space Marines exist in chapters.
Yes.
Chapters of about 1,000 Marines. They have their own culture. They usually come from planets. They're tied into that planet's culture. There's only 1,000 of them. They're all fighting people. So Helots are like support staff. They're the people who like make sure the armor's correctly prepared, get people out, because a Space Marine can't put their own armor on.
Like,
it's so
page
complex.
boys.
Yeah, or like
or
support staff in any army.
Yeah.
Like you need people who are going to do the maintenance and cooking and cleaning and make sure that there's enough ammunition and fly the aircraft that are going to get people places and pilot the ships and things, who aren't necessarily fighting warriors. You know, the conceit here is she's writing her memoirs because her previously perfect memory is failing.
Yeah. She had like a techno brain.
Yeah.
Loads of her is techno. She has like a special techno eye.
This is because we meet her as a Helot for a very specific Space Marine chapter called the Mentor Legion. And we find out the Mentor Legion are in the business of, instead of sending 1,000 Marines to go and fight somewhere, the Mentor Legion send one Marine whose specialism is in leading mortal troops, human troops, and coordinating. And they get the best equipment and the best stuff. And part of that best equipment is 3 Helots who refer to themselves as slaves.
Yeah.
They refer to them as, we are slaves of this chapter, in a sort of weird, proud to be but resigned to their fate way.
Very much a 40k, which everyone warns me about. Wherever you live in 40k, you're either a slave or you're part of the empire, and you're just like, okay, I was born into this life. Someone's probably going to pick me up and throw me into some chapter or something. And
can't argue about it. That's what
you can't decide you want to go and start a band or be an artist.
She's one of the 3 Helots serving this one Marine called Amadeus.
Amadeus.
Who was sent to, who's been sent to find out what happens. We hear how torturous this journey is. They finally arrive in Alara's Vale. They get through the cicatrix to be stopped immediately by a Spears ship. They don't know anything about the Spears other than they are a Primaris chapter. They were there last time the Imperium looked.
Yeah.
The Spears are very terse with them.
Yeah.
They have to go through a bit of a check to see if they're really as loyal as they say. No one really believes them. And then they are escorted back to the Spears' homeworld, where I guess is really where any plot begins.
Yeah, and the homeworld is amazing. There's all kind of like weird and wonderful rituals going on. It's like the Marines down there have kind of befriended. Well, they're kind of living in the same place as the people who actually live there, who have all these weird barbaric customs. Like they've got a witch shaman that the Marines interact with and like almost take advice from.
Yeah.
The little boys cover their eyes when they see a Space Marine coming.
Yeah.
And the little girls don't. And the reason the little boys do that is because the parents are worried if they look at a Space Marine, they'll be taken away to become one.
Yeah. Which is shown as a really different thing to what the Mentor Legion are used to. There are other Space Marine chapters where boys compete for the right to be a Space Marine. But in this place, being taken is considered bad.
Yeah.
Like you're a ghost now. They're amongst all the people of Nemeton, but the people of Nemeton treat them like they're not there.
Yes.
They're not allowed to show their face.
Yeah. And there's lots of things like this particular Marine chapter have like face tattoos and stuff like this, and just feels a bit Celtic and a bit like...
One of the first of these Emperor Spears we meet is Briach.
Oh.
Briach, who we meet first off, is a captain of the Emperor Spears and is very much set up as being, this is another person of the same rank as Amadeus, but they couldn't be more different.
Yes.
Amadeus is very terse with his Helots. It's an emotionless, precise, completely business-like relationship.
I mean, he's a bit of a prick to his Helots.
Yeah. And I think this is really the core of the book is set up in this meeting. Amadeus is someone who's been taken as a kid and turned into a killer robot.
Yeah.
And his reaction to that, just like all the Helots, is, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so I guess I'm a killer robot now.
Yeah.
No point being sentimental. Briach is also someone who's been taken as a kid and been turned into a killer robot.
Yeah.
But their response is sort of a black humour.
Yeah.
Sort of a weird, oh well, we're a killer robot. Huh, this is shit.
Yeah.
A sort of deliberate, jolly, respectful but nihilist.
Yeah. I mean,
it's fun.
It sets it up for classic. You know when you have a cop movie and there's one,
Yeah.
but I by the rules, and like, oh, I'm kind of crazy. So you have Amadeus. I mean, I've done a little bit of a character study on Amadeus. This is just an example of what Amadeus gets up to as a good Space Marine. He ordered me, so this is Anurada talking about, Amadeus's keep fit sessions. He ordered me to ritually drain his blood to weaken him before one training session in every 5, forcing greater effort and endurance in response. One day, he told me to shoot him. I mean, worst Barry's boot camp ever. Like, that's how seriously Amadeus takes it.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was pushing it to the point of, you know, comedy a little bit. And then there's a beautiful character study on Amadeus. She's just saying he's just a machine, he has no emotions. And she says, Amadeus was similarly without sentiment with his firearm. He referred to his bolt gun as VCK XA1719. I was like, that is not good in war. Can you pass me the V? You know, and so yeah, I love that you picked up on that. They are definitely two completely different sides of you know.
It's a really interesting thing, and you get that in this first meeting. Like, he gets off the thing, he walks down, going, "You guys stand at the back. You're my servants. You stand at the back there. I will walk down." Brayak's like, "Great, you're this guy who's come to see us. That's fucking ridiculous. We haven't seen any of you for ages, and you've come here wearing these colours. Such an insult. A sort of joking insult, which we find out about later. And then,
which you're gonna have to explain to me later as well.
And then, sort of unexpected, like Amadeus is very used to like diplomacy, so he's not against it, but he's a bit surprised by it. Brayak then formally introduces himself to Anurada and the other two Helots, Tiberia and Kartash.
Yes.
Tiberia's sort of young and
very ambitious,
and Kartash is like old and worried and very pious.
We think.
But he introduces them formally, welcomes them there, treats them exactly the same as he treats Amadeus, refuses to treat them like servants in any way. As far as he's concerned, they are fellow travellers who are as welcome as anyone else is, and that's that. Basically, we set up the core of this book, which is that the spears are different. They're not what and also he tells a bit of the story, which is that they've been fighting this war since the psychiatrics spread. They've been fighting a war against a thing called the Exilarchy. Like exiles, the Exilarchy, who are led by some Chaos Space Marines called the Pure.
Who are horrible.
And that they are they're losing. I mean, they are losing. Them and the Celestial Lions, who there aren't many of, are losing. So the Emperor's Spears are having to shoulder it all. They've sent many, many ships over to try and get to the Imperium. So they kind of say right at the start, you're not going back. There's no way back. We've sent loads of ships, none of them have come.
I mean, it's definitely, they're a ragtag band. They're the last vestiges of these three different units, and they're kind of they're dying.
And then we get to the really interesting scene where they meet the people local to the planet, as you just said, and then Anurada goes off and explores and finds out a bit of a dark secret.
So cool. So basically, you know, in Doctor Who when Daleks go wrong and you have these mutations, so she goes looking through this kind of old crypt, and she's kind of drawn there, and she basically discovers these poor like space marines that didn't work out when they were growing genetically, and she's like, oh no, I guess these are all failed space marines. But there is actually, out of the shadows comes this space marine who's not perfect, who's like a flawed space marine, which is kind of a sin.
In other places he would be killed for being mutated. But the spears cannot afford to lose someone.
No.
And you find out eventually that, I mean, she deduces pretty quickly that the spears got the knowledge to make Primaris Marines and to make their people into Primaris Marines, but they didn't get any guidance, so they just had to try it and see what happened.
Some of those didn't work out.
They go and they meet the old witch. They get their Geas read, their fortune. They get given a sort of prophecy about their future.
That was weird, wasn't it? A space marine having a fortune. Like, let me tell you.
And then, of course, it is insisted that all the Helots get their Geas read, so Anurada gets hers. And then there's some hilarious, funny jokes about Brayak saying, well, if she'd said you were bad, I would have just killed you.
You can't really put stock in this local woman. And then Brayak goes, I would have killed you. I'm the crazy one.
And it's like, you get the sense that like, they're very tied into this culture that hates them.
It's
and
bizarre.
That's where this like weird black humour comes from.
But I mean, that's part of the thing I love about Black Library books, when they take us to a planet and, you know, we get to think, oh, there's all these weird cultures and things. And enjoyed that.
And that's like, that's basically the first book. That's as far as we get. And then basically we get a bit of arming sequence where the Helots arm up for their first mission accompanying the Emperor's Spears. We find out that basically they're extremely well equipped. They're basically cyborgs. They've got a lot of upgrades. They've got these shotguns. They've got loads of other weapons. They've got eyes that shoot lasers. They can also, their job is to see through Amadeus, so they can always see through Amadeus's eyes.
This bit's so cool. I think I wrote this down as well. So she is wearing, so like you're saying, she can see through her Space Marine's eyes. So she says, Vision, targeting reticule twitching this way and that in alignment with his pupils. I saw what he saw, the fresh data spilling down my retinal display, temperature, gravitic pull, ammunition count, Amadeus vital signs, the daily prayer. Thought I absorbed all of it with ingrained familiarity. And I just thought that's so cool because it lets you kind of see what a Space Marine's seeing.
Yeah, but also like she doesn't get like he chooses who's seeing her at any one time.
Yeah.
And it could be all the time. Like she doesn't get to turn off really.
The only time he turns it off is actually when he's doing private things and he goes, get out of my eye, you know, and he'll switch her off. But you're right, she doesn't have a choice. And
you see this later on in the battle, you see why this is. And it's so that he can appear even better when fighting to these humans, because his job is to be the one Space Marine leading humans.
Yeah.
And we see a little bit of this in the first scene of the book 2. So book 2, we go into this first battle. We find a planet. The planet's under attack by the Exilarchy, who are mostly human troops, crazy humans. You find the 3 of them in a rhino, which has been set up as a Damocles command rhino, which is a thing in the game. Yeah, it's a tank.
You can buy it.
Also, you can buy a Damocles. You can buy a Damocles command rhino.
Yes.
That's a tank you can buy. So they sit in it, and all of them can see through his eyes. And what they're doing is track. And they've got servo skulls, which are also things.
You can get a servo
skulls. They're very cute,
and you can use them in the game.
Yeah, servo skulls are these little things, and they.
So I'm going to get my Titan and then servo skulls. Yeah, that's going to be
that's
my
all
army.
you need.
Yeah,
swarms of them. So they're in a tank, and they're using these servo skulls to pick out threats to him.
Yeah,
and then they give him information through the battle. So they'll be scanning around, and he'll be charging through, killing people, and they'll be like, "Yeah, there's someone hiding behind a rock to your left, 3 meters down. There's someone with a powered sword, 3 meters over there to your right," and he's all that. So he can just be reacting and killing people like a robot.
Yeah,
and then he looks even more impressive.
Yeah.
And in this battle, he does that. So he decides to go in with the human troops. The spears are like, "Come and fight with us, brother." And he's like, "No, my skills are with fighting with humans. I am going to fight with the humans." He goes and fights with the humans, and all the spears go and do their thing, which is much more like we're all mates and we're all going to have a fight.
I mean, it was very bloody. They didn't spare any of the the close-ups. It's gross, but I did learn how many people you can smash if you have a Space Marine.
Exactly. All of them.
Yeah.
So that briefly happens. They win. They get off the planet. They go back into their ship, and they see another ship, an Exilarchy ship run by the Pure, which they've been looking for ages. They chase it into the warp. They think they're going to catch it, but it's a trap.
Don't chase things into the warp.
Yeah, and then in the warp, they're basically knocked out of the warp forcefully by the other ship, which leads to, and this is where the book just changes.
It's not good.
At this point, you've been in a 40k novel so far. They're knocked out of the warp for 1.3 seconds until they get into real space, which results in literal hell breaking loose.
Yeah.
And at that point, they are boarded by the Pure.
Yeah. They're completely fucked.
They're completely
at this point.
fucked. And we're talking about it. One thing I really liked about that previous fight scene is that it's not really a description of glorious combat.
No, it's messy as...
Yeah, it's like there's nothing good in it. It's about the difference between how he fights and how they fight, but no one's doing heroic Marine bravely fighting gloriously.
Yeah,
it's just not that sort of thing. So once this Gellerfield fails, we basically go into a horror movie.
Wait, say what the Gellerfield is.
So the Gellerfield is a bubble of real space around ships that stops all the madness and demons and hell of the warp getting in. That went down for a second.
And then,
and then they got ejected into real space, but that was enough time for all sorts of shit to happen. So like the first thing that happens is she walks out of her arming chamber with her shotgun, and like what was a corridor of crew is now a corridor of fused rib cages.
Yeah.
And that sort of sets the start of the tone.
It's pretty gross. I mean, it's like, you wander into a nightmare and you see all this grimdark, that kind of art where it's like just flesh and, dead bodies. And, also characters are having hallucinations.
Yes.
So she's imagining her, dead father and, friends are trying to kill friends. And so many of their crew die. It just takes such a horrible turn for the worse. And it doesn't feel like they're going to win. It just goes from bad to worse.
And there's a few key things that happen in here. There's like a few stop moments in amongst the horror.
Yeah.
She thinks she sees Amadeus in a white space marine, a white dressed space marine, but actually it's one of the Pure, who she mistook because they wear very similar colours, which we get to later.
Dumb.
And the Pure then attacks them, her and Tiberia. And despite all their their shotguns are designed to kill space marines, it's the first time I think she comes into contact with one, and even she's like, I don't know how to do this. They're too fast. They're too powerful. Both Tiberia and her are almost killed, like severely injured and almost killed.
And use every one of their every single thing that they've got, all their upgrades and everything.
To put down one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happens. They try and find Kartash, who Anuradha is convinced that she sees him with like a glowing green sword killing Space Marines, loyalists. Which she, and then blacks out, so she can't tell what's going on.
So I was wondering, was that glowing green sword like, Eisenhower had this runic vortex?
Like a power, like a demon weapon.
So I wondered if that was...
It's not, but it becomes clear later what it was. But anyway, so she thinks she sees this, she doesn't know if she's hallucinating. She does briefly meet up with Amadeus. Her links are all severed to him through the Pure's attack. She meets up with Amadeus. Amadeus stops her from having a hallucination because there's a demon who masquerades as her father. And eventually she's knocked unconscious. Yeah. And they lose. And the Pure capture the ship. And both of them are enslaved. And then go through a brutal capture series of killing the other prisoners to survive because they deliberately aren't given enough food. Various people get taken and killed and tortured.
I mean, this is not a book that I would... If I'd known that this was coming up, I probably would have still read it for like book club, but it was really, really hardcore. I was so proud of myself for getting through it. Yeah.
I'd completely forgotten all that happened.
No one warned me. And I get it in the grimdark, people die, but I don't want my characters that I've got to like to be tortured to death. And I'm sure this is no spoilers, there's a lot of death, but not only just death, maiming, brutalizing, torturing. They're both Tiberia and Anuradha are ill at the start. It ends up that Tiberia has to sort of step up and become the leader of the slaves, and then she's taken away and killed. She kind of sacrifices herself. It's a real bait and switch because she's presented as like, she's scheming, she's very ambitious, and you don't like her, but during this bit where they're incarcerated, she really becomes, a character that you really like, and then spoilers, like at the end,
Anuradha is brought before the Pure leader on the ship, who does a bit of exposition and fills in the gaps in our knowledge. And this is where I'll explain the Mentor Legion thing. Yay! So we learn a bit more about this whole thing about the Pure and why she mistook Amadeus for a Pure, and it's because though the Imperial records of the Star Scorpions are that they were lost to the warp, what actually happened is they became corrupted by the warp and turned to chaos. So the Pure are the Star Scorpions, which is why the Emperor's Spears and the Celestial Lions hate them so much. But not only that, when the Pure were recorded as being lost to the warp, that meant the Imperium went, okay, well, their chapter number and colours are now free. We will assign them to a new chapter that we're going to call the Mentor Legion. Okay. So the Mentor Legion turns up. This is why they all really didn't like, or at least were joking about how they disliked him and how he was being rude to them, is because Amadeus is wearing the white and green, different symbol, but wearing the white and green of the Star Scorpions. He's chapter 888, the Mentor Legion, which are the Star Scorpions number, because the Imperium think the Star Scorpions are dead, but the Star Scorpions are not dead. No. They're the Pure.
They're out there wreaking havoc. So can you buy those?
You can paint your army as any of them. Okay. But they're just Marines. Yeah. They're all just Marines.
They're just Marines.
Yeah, they're all just Marines.
But no, I feel like I read that, but I needed you to explain it to me.
That's what happened. Yeah. So we find out and that's why the minute he lands, they call him False Scorpion. Yes. And he understands that. He goes, oh yeah, well, I've got the colours of the Star Scorpions. They must be annoyed about that because the Star Scorpions were their brothers. Yeah. But he does not realise until quite late in the book why that matters.
You think that they'd fill him in?
Yeah. Well, they don't. Yeah, they don't know. No. Well, this is the nice thing about the Emperor Spears is they're very casual about having a laugh at his expense. Which, this is what I really like about it. There's something very 40k in that sort of humour that the Spears, the Emperor Spears possess. Like, it's very, very grimdark. And there's like scenes with these like corridors made of rib cages and all this stuff. But the Spears' reaction to it is this like resignment to it. And it's like, it's not a macho humor you see sometimes with Space Marine portrayals, which is almost a bit like Amadeus is like. It's not like glory and duty and reveling in the killing. We're so strong. It's none of that. It's almost like, ugh. Yeah. My job's to do this. Yeah. This is ridiculous.
Another day, another ribcage.
Yeah, I think
that's a really good point. And I think the human perspective, really, you get the horror and the like, oh my God, you know, this is awful. And that real sense of like, you know, just gripping horrible things are going on. So it's actually quite a nice relief to have that kind of fatalistic humor, you know, just kicking their way through blood and guts as they go about their business.
Yeah, and things like they're gonna call this guy False Scorpion for a laugh. They're not going to explain it.
No. Why would they? Only readers like me need that spoon-fed by Ian. So
anyway, so after meeting the guy, they are rescued. Amadeus is rescued. He's almost dead. They turn him into Primaris Marine to save him. Upgrade. They meet up with and then this all happens very quickly at the end. They meet up with the Celestial Lions. And then an assassin springs out and kills the chapter master of the Celestial Lions.
Out of the ceiling.
Out of the ceiling.
When you think everything's going to be okay.
And it turns out to be Kartash, who is a Calidus assassin, which is a sort of assassin that famously uses a glowing green energy blade. The last part of the book basically becomes a hunt for the assassin.
Yes.
The assassin is captured and killed. I think Anarada defends herself against it and hurts it. And then Brayak turns up and spears it.
I can't remember. Why did he turn on them again, the assassin? Can you remember?
So the story is he was sent by the Inquisition to kill the leader of the Celestial Lions, and he was the Inquisition had, because of some old vindictive thing in the fluff from years ago, the Inquisition had it out for the Celestial Lions, and so they saw their chance when this mission was being prepared, and with the presumed agreement of the Mentor Legion, hid an assassin posing as a Helot, which is the last bit of information Amadeus needs to go, fine, we're not going to get back, and I'm now going to have to be an Emperor Spear.
Yeah. That's
the bit where he resigns his fate. And then suddenly a lot of the flashbacks make sense. And all the way through the book, they've been constantly flashing back to the present where Anarada's writing it and talking about this guy called Vardhan that they have a much more human relationship with.
Yeah. I mean, two things I say about that. One is, you know, are we friends with the Inquisitors or not? Because sometimes we really like them and sometimes they're dicks.
Yeah, they're often dicks.
Yeah. And second, the descriptions of the Spear's armour really made me think it was a great colour combo. I don't play, 40k at all at the moment, but I could really visualise what Space Marines would be like going into battle. And there's also some really beautiful descriptive elements where things like the spaceship and the tech feels real hard sci-fi.
Yes, there is, isn't there? And I wonder if that's partly a Mentor Legion thing or partly because you're seeing it from the point of view of an insider.
I think, even when you're seeing all the different augmentation and the robot stuff, it really sets you in this technologically advanced universe. And I loved it. I'm a big fan of hard sci-fi. I've just come out of reading all the Expanse books. And it just was so immersive. And then on the planet, when they took it down to the barbarism and all the witchcraft and stuff, it really felt like an adventure kind of barbarian novel. So fantastic chef kiss writing. Blown away.
So there we are. That's basically what happened. It's actually a pretty concise story.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
I really, really enjoyed it. I loved that it felt like a really gung-ho, fast-paced adventure. And I really, really cared about the characters. Like, I wanted Amadeus to be okay, even though he was like, I wanted him to have some kind of redemption. And it kind of kept you intrigued. There were little mysteries all the way. I really enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down. I loved that we went on a planet. We went in space. I learned more about Space Marines. I just thought it was really, really good. And I can't believe I got through all the really horrible, fighting, bones crunching, people being maimed, augmentation going wrong. There was one particular description, if you are a human and you take this technology on. So, for example, one of the characters has got an augmented eye that she can shoot through, but that means her eye socket will itch forever. There's that amount of detail to get you in this universe. And I just loved it. I didn't enjoy the violent bits, but I could read them and not throw up. So I think that's good. What about you? What did you think?
I've forgotten how good it was. I honestly have forgotten how good it was. It's probably I think it's the best novel in the current Indomitus lot.
Wow.
And I think it's probably one of the best Space Marine novels. There's very few Space Marine novels that just hit that balance between showing them as being effective and people that you like you grow to like these characters, but you don't want to beat them.
Hell no.
You really don't want to beat them.
No.
For different reasons. They're different sorts of killer robot, like we said earlier. They're not nice, and they are aware that what's happened to them is bad. They're aware that they have no choice, that they've become this thing, and they're all dealing with it their own way.
Yeah.
It's a really clever look at it that some Space Marine novels do not get.
It's a whole world away of like going to a bar on a planet and listening to trap music.
Yeah.
You know, like there's nothing. It's bleak AF, as the kids would say.
It's also what's interesting. I'll see, because everything we've read up to now has been very concerned with like the backstage of 40k. It's a good way to get into 40k, right? So we've done Eisenhorn, which is all about like posing as a grain merchant to get into a chaos cult to find your way to a thing, and we've done Cain, which is it's not that much of a battlefield novel. Like, it's a story about someone who works for the army but always avoids a battlefield.
Yeah.
This is the first one that just doesn't do, like, we don't see the backdrop of the Imperium or even really the functionaries and way in which Alara's Veil works. We see that they've got a Forge Moon. We see that the Celestial Spears are in charge and their people are they're all old mates and they're extremely charismatic. I think one of the best written Space Marine characters I like is Ekene Dubaku, who's the leader of the Celestial Spears, who like is only in it for for like a couple of pages and is already like the most shiningly charismatic figure you've ever met.
Iconic.
Like, you like him straight away and then he's killed.
But that book does a lot of this, makes you like people, then slaughters them. But you're right, it's total battlefield, trenches.
Or at least, and when it's not on the battlefield, it's about the battlefield. Yeah. It's about war. It's about people who own their entire lives are surrounded by this, and that's all they're for.
Yeah. It's really, really grimdark.
Yeah.
As an editor of 28 magazine, just shout out, I think the whole 28 team will be fucking proud of me for getting through this book, because there will be articles and they say this is not one for Mira to edit. So yeah, I'm so pleased. You know, I think it was my friend Sarah who actually was like, put this on the list. So yeah, Sarah, you chose well. So and the Patreon
and the Patreon people. Questions?
Yes, our favourite bit. Okay,
let's do your questions first, and then I've got Patreon questions, which I think we've covered a few of.
I feel this might be really dumb, and I think it might be answered in the book. So my question is, they refer to the Emperor a lot.
Yeah.
They've obviously been sent across the warp to do this for a reason. Is the Emperor actually alive? I know they sacrifice a load of souls a day to keep him alive.
Yeah.
Does the Emperor, is he telling people what to do?
Questionable.
We don't know? Or?
So basically no one knows. The idea is the Emperor is technically alive, though how alive nobody knows, incapable of communicating. But then there is a huge religion that insists that he communicates through visions and prophecies and tarot cards and things like that. And there are books where that definitely happens.
Okay.
Like, the Emperor has huge psychic power and can do that. But no one's getting an order from the Emperor directly. Everything's in his name, really, unless you're a priest and saying that the Emperor is telling you what to do, or you're one of the people who has a vision or something like that and attributes it to the Emperor. Okay. So it's very much like it's a comment on religion.
Oh my God.
No one knows if the Emperor's actually there or not. They all know that guy's there. No one knows if he's communicating. There's a very few books where that's taken. Like, there's a scene in one of the other Indomitus novels where Guilliman goes and speaks to the Emperor, and the Emperor's almost like, whenever this has been done, it's like the Emperor has been fractured into thousands of parts trying to do a million jobs and has to almost pull himself together to be capable of communicating with a human. The Imperium treat him like an almost omnipotent god, but it's clear that the Emperor is if the Emperor is truly alive, he's under immense strain to stay even vaguely together. Yeah.
It's just nuts. Like, in every book, he's such an overarching, referred to, presence. Every swear word is like, for the Emperor. And it's just a mystery. Maybe we need to read a book about the Emperor.
The other thing I quite like in this is that even though Guilliman is back and is leading the Imperium, the Spears consistently refer to him as the false Primarch. Because their opinion is bullshit. There's no Primarchs. And they're all descendants of the Ultramarines. There's a really good comment that Gabriel makes in the Patreon things, which is that the Ultramarines are extremely Roman. Like, that's the idea. The Ultramarines look like Romans. They're very Roman looking. And they have all these successor chapters that, who never met them years down. And this very much feels like encountering like a Celtic tribe after the fall of Rome, when they still remember Rome and they still have the trappings of Rome, but that Roman influence on their culture is receding.
Oh, I love that.
And is that a deliberate choice to specifically do like the treat the Imperium Nihilus and the Cicatrix Maledictum as something that forces the Imperium to pull back.
Yeah.
Like Rome did to try and prospect itself, leaving all these places out there that sort of still think of themselves as imperial, but are slowly becoming not imperial.
Who said that on your Patreon?
Gabriel,
that's really fucking
it's a
clever.
really clever thing, isn't it? Yeah.
I wish, I mean, we did say that kind of Celtic feel of those, you know, the lady with the runes and the, you know,
They're called, they're referred to each other, the spears, by their tribe. So they're referred to, he's Briac of the Vargantes.
Yes.
And the way the tribes are named, like the Vargantes, is very Roman sounding. Like it reminds me of things like the Iceni or the Caledones or all these like the Roman names they gave to British tribes. Yeah.
No, I love that. Great observation, Gabriel. Do you want to quickly go through the different colours of these chapters?
Right.
And whether you'd want to play them or not?
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. See, Mentor Legion are a really weird one because I don't know how you'd play them because you just take one or two of them.
Do they actually exist? Are they in the lore? Like?
Yeah, they are. They've been around for years, actually. Okay. In fact, the idea that the Mentor Legion are this very special chapter of very specialised Marines is really, really old, like 80s old.
And even in the 80s, they would still give them the same armour as...
They were green and white, yeah.
Interesting.
But I don't think the Star Scorpions existed.
I
don't think that story existed. So the Mentor Legions being green and white and having chapter number 888 and being a new founding chapter with high tech was always there.
Yeah.
I think the idea that they specialised in, they were like specialists testing out new weapons was always there. The idea that I think they specialised in leading human troops individually wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's a nice setup, right? That you set up the tribal all mates chapter against the chapter who function by only being one person at a time.
Yeah, and
they have no brotherhood between them. Amadeus doesn't ever meet another mentor, but only refers to his chapter master.
Yeah,
and his only companions are 3 servants. Yeah.
So Celestial Lions, would you want to play them?
Oh, the Celestial Lion thing's interesting.
Let's talk about that.
Celestial Lion things is a thing from the other wider background that you will or will not know, but essentially, at various times in the past, the Celestial Lions are known to be very, very noble. And there was an incident where the Inquisition killed lots of people and the Celestial Lions were really annoyed about it. They sent petitions to argue that the Inquisitors in question were wrong, should be tried, that the Exterminators of Planets was bad. The Celestial Lions were really against the Inquisition, which led to this conspiracy where the Inquisition sent them to this massive war called Armageddon with bad information, knowing that they'd get a load of them killed.
God,
and it's basically been trying to kill them since.
The Inquisition suck!
Which you don't need to know for this.
No.
But evidently they're gone, right, these Space Marines are anti-Inquisition, therefore we're going to deliberately give them bad information and get them killed.
I love
and this was the last straw. Yeah.
Thank you for telling me that.
It's not necessary for this. All you need to know is the Inquisition harboured a grudge against the Lions.
Yeah.
And even though Indomitus has happened and this massive rift has happened, they're still going to find an excuse to go and hurt them.
Yeah. I don't like the Inquisition anymore. Well, for this book, I don't like them. So shall we do Patreon questions?
Okay. There's some comments about the accents on the audiobook, which I get. I don't listen to the audiobooks.
No, we read.
We're
books. Old school, like actual paper.
I can't do the audiobooks.
No,
I just can't. It tunes my brain out.
It's too slow for me. I read faster than I can listen.
Yeah, me too. And even if I speed the audiobook up, I've tried listening to them, and I don't know, having one person read it to me and try and do voices is way less varied than me just doing them all in my head.
I wonder if we should listen to some audio.
We shouldn't we?
This.
I find it genuinely difficult. I have a similar thing with graphic novels. I can't read graphic novels. I'm really bad at it. Like I have to stare at boxes and understand what they mean. It's like, whereas if it was just words, it would just flow from the page into my brain.
Yeah, I hear that.
And same with audiobooks. I can listen to podcasts because you're sort of engaged in a discussion.
Yeah.
But someone I can't do it. And there's a comment here from Ian Dodds about how this is quite a difficult one because it's obvious that the Celestial Lions are meant to be sort of Black African culture.
Yeah.
It's called Akene Dubaku.
Yeah.
They're known as having a dark skin. And then obviously the woman reading it is has to then do a voice.
Yeah.
And what choice do you make when you do that voice? One of the audiobooks I tried to listen to was The Infinite and the Divine, which a lot of people recommended. And I recommended it because I've read the book as a good introduction to the Necrons, about these 2 old Necrons. Every time the reader who has a sort of RP British accent does either of the Necrons, because Necrons are like space robots that are sort of Egyptian.
Yeah.
He does this Middle Eastern accent.
Oh, dear.
And it's a bit like, it just gets grating after a while.
It's making me anxious, you even doing that.
Yeah, because I sounded Russian, but but it's I sounded like Robbie Coltrane in a James Bond film.
Yes, that's exactly what you sounded like. I mean, I do struggle with audiobooks because, you know, when it's one reader and they have to do so many different characters, it does stretch it. And I just think it's really awkward, and I won't put myself in that position. Yeah, I'm
just much more aware of the reader than I would be if I'm reading off a book. Anyway,
a
very bonus question, very, very serious from Gabriel. Any ships from the book?
What, in terms of relationships? Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. When it was so bleak, but in the prison.
Yeah.
When, you know, these two women found strength and like,
oh yeah, totally.
Literally were like holding on to each other. You wanted them to have made that bond. They've truly got to see each other through that incarceration and really bad treatment. And I just thought that would have been amazing, like to have these, and then it would have been two of the women taking down the assassin.
Yeah.
I loved that. And I loved the relationship between Amadeus and, you know, this faithful Helot. You kind of figure out she kind of cares about Amadeus.
Well, she sort of hates him as well. She sort of hates the Mentor Legion for what they did to her father and cares about them.
Yeah, but she is always trying to have very personal one-to-one conversations and humanize Amadeus. And I really liked that. And I felt you could see that kind of growing. And
I wonder if there's an interesting thing there in that obviously the entire book's being written by her in the future, where she knows Amadeus as a much more human character.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much,
What about you? Any shipping?
I mean, the obvious one's Tiberia and Anarada, right?
Yeah.
Because they have this whole journey where they get to know each other like nobody else, as closest, from people who didn't like each other.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any others possible. Like, I'm not going to put Kartash in anything. There's nothing in the book that implies that.
Brayak and Amadeus.
Yeah, you could have Brayak and Amadeus.
Solid bros who kind of appreciate each other because of the battle. And then, you know, as Amadeus comes around to, you know, be part of that unit.
How did you like the choice of point of view character? And how would these events have been retold from the point of view of, if it was from the point of view of someone serving the spears from the Vale?
I loved the point of view. I thought it was so cleverly done. And I thought she was really, really layered, and, you know, especially with her backstory, remembering her father and trying to have she had very complicated relationships with all of her group. I thought the POV was excellent. It would have been interesting to have the point of view of the tribes on the planet, because we heard a lot about how they reacted to the Marines. I'd have loved to be inside the minds of one of them going, oh, these hulking robot creatures wander around. What about you? Yeah,
I thought it was a really nice choice. Like, it's also a really nice choice because it's someone who knows more than a normal human, because we know more than a normal human in 40k.
Right.
Like, an inhabitant of the Vale will be like, those giants that take our children and come and lurk.
Yeah.
That's, you know, but she knows, like, kind of as much as we do as readers of 40k. And that puts her in a really good position to observe all those things. Yeah. So there was something that really occurred to me. Obviously, it's a job. It's like her life, but it's her job.
Yeah.
And the job is, by the way, you and two people you've never met now serve that guy. You have no relationship. You don't like each other. And please go to this place forever.
You might die. I just noticed Paul's written, I wonder if Mira thought it was a bit much. He's referring to the Grimdark.
Yeah.
I felt this book was probably one of the Grimdarkest I've read to date. I wonder if Mira thought it was a bit much. I know I felt claustrophobic darkness creeping in through the hopelessness of the loyalist struggle. It was wonderful. Paul, you are messed up. It was way too much. My friendship with Ian kind of kept me going. And I love doing that. It was too much. But now I'm in it.
I really like the Exilarchy thing. Like, they're losing. Yeah. Like, this isn't like a Pyrrhic victory where the Imperium lose. So many Imperial stories are great. It's a great way of doing the Imperium, but so many of their stories are stories where they lose because they're arrogant or overbearing or stupid or don't take the threat seriously. And this is one where they lose genuinely because they're outnumbered. Like, it's not because the Imperium are stupid. They lose because the Exilarchy are just too powerful.
But they're also, the Exilarchy are absolute animals. They have not that Space Marines have sanctity of life or anything, but they are horrific, terrifying. They're the creatures from the worst nightmares. They've no mercy, horrible.
But what's quite nice about it, at the same
What's
time...
quite nice about it?
At the same time, what I think is quite nice about it is the Exilarchy and the Pure are not moustache-twirling villains. Like, they're not theatrically evil. They're like realistically brutally evil. Like, they're horrible.
They're like EastEnders.
They're like EastEnders, yeah.
They're really horrible.
Lawrence asks about if the assassination was Inquisitor sanctioned and what purpose do you think it served? And was it a Chaos False flag? I think it's definitely, based on the other stories about the Inquisition and the Celestial Lions, it's the Inquisitor deliberately doing it. I think, yes, there are definitely Tzeentchian chaos plots that involve people being in the right place at the right time and assassinations and things, but they don't tend to be as meticulously planned by servants of the Imperium that way. You tend to find that they're like, oh, there was this person that didn't know why they were going there, and then they were there and suddenly it all came together. That's a bit more chaosy for me. Yeah. This was definitely the Inquisition. It's about the pettiness. It's the same thing. It's about the pettiness of the Imperium, and almost the stories about the freedom Amadeus finds when he doesn't have to be part of it anymore.
I think Ian picking up on the whole way back lore connection of the Celestials and the Inquisitors, I think that was it.
That's it.
I mean, chaos never helps, does it? But
and it's there because I think actually the book's sort of done by the second half. The second part. The third part is there to show you why, even though they're losing, even though they're screwed, why the Spears are kind of right and the Imperium are wrong. Yeah. That's what it's there to show you. And that assassination is like the final nail in the coffin, where even Amadeus has to admit that the Spears are right.
Yeah, and that assassination is brutal because in that moment when you're on the command deck, wherever it is, you have this sense of hope because you're like, oh, thank goodness, the horror is over. Amadeus is all right. And then all of a sudden...
The literal most charismatic Space Marine ever written has blasted onto the page and in one page impressed everybody.
He did.
There's our ship.
Yeah.
A Kennedy Baku and everybody else.
I feel like if I was in this universe, that would happen to me. I'd be like, hi guys, and then just shot down. Ow. Yeah, just recycle me. Pop me into the Emperor, whatever.
Corpse starch, I think, is the traditional.
Lovely.
So there we go. That's Spear of the Emperor. We both enjoyed it. We've now gone, it's interesting now, because now we've done Eisenhorn and Cain, and we've gone to the complete other end. So God knows what's next. As always, we will put a poll up now on the Patreon. In fact, the poll probably is up already by this point on the Patreon. I will not stop the poll until this comes out. And if you want to vote on the next book, vote there.
Yeah. If you want us to read any other books that aren't on the poll, you can suggest them in the YouTube, but and Patreon. You're probably more likely to get Patreon attention because
I'm trying because I'm having a hard time managing Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at the minute. But so yes, keep it in the Patreon. It's easier if it's all in the Patreon.
Yes, help Ian out.
Thanks, Mira. Thanks for that. Let's see what they give us to read next.
Yeah, can't wait. Bye, everyone.
Bye.